I mean, do you ever? I mean, I was always under the assumption that most cops don't know the laws that well themselves. You know, when it comes down to the fine details. You know.
Really hard through my experience. I mean, I've filmed hundreds and hundreds of police interactions with public, hundreds of arrests. Um, really depends on the cop. A lot of them get a very cursory training. Very bare bones kind of training.
Yeah.
That's why they have different kinds of divisions. They'll have a traffic division, and they'll have housing division. Like some cops are only patrolling projects in inner cities. They'll have a gang task force. They'll have in Portland they have a gang and a gun task force. It's like violent crimes that have to do with guns or gangs, and then they have sex trafficking task force, and they have Oregon Liquor Commission, which they only deal with just the laws. They're compartmentalized, just the laws that have to deal with people trying to sneak IDs in to a bar, and are the bars complying with certain kinds of federal regulations? And now they're all myopically self-interested in those little specializations. So when Joe Blow off the street comes by and commits a crime of harassment or any number of other what I call victimless crimes, maybe that cop is just compartmentalized into that one specific area of his vocation, like they all are, and they appear like dumbasses. So a lot of times they're actually reasonably intelligent people, but they're just doing a very compartmentalized job, I would say. And then you get your amoral operator cop. Those are my least favorite. Those are the reason why I exist. A lot of cops are, well, that profession attracts a certain kind of mentality, a sociopath, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone who weighs constantly. Me as an anarchist, I base my decisions and my actions when I'm at my best. I mean, everybody has failings. Sometimes I'm just a fuck up and an asshole. But when I'm on the ball about it, when I'm confronted with a moral situation, I think, is it right? Is it just? And then act. That's why a lot of laws don't make sense to me, and I ignore a lot of laws because they're quote unquote victimless crimes. I mean, I don't see how people being put in prison over a plant is going to help. The drug war is an absolute failure.
Oh yeah. I totally agree with you on that. I went on to even in college, a lot of rants on that. How expensive it is and how much of a fuck up it is to the system, and how much money they actually spend is ridiculous. Like $40 billion a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a really great international organization, actually. It's called LEAP. It's comprised of lawyers, detectives, regular beat cops, judges, some former district attorneys. It's called Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. There's an international coalition of people that have worked in a drug war. And now these are cops and people in the legal system from countries all over the world.
Yeah.
That believe that prohibition of drugs is more harmful than the net benefit of society. And these are the people that have put the people in the cages. These are the people that have seen the impacts of the drug war. These are the people that have seen the fact that, well, historically, if you look at any kind of prohibition, when government says you can't do something,
yeah,
it makes that something more expensive.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it also creates a criminal enterprise for
exactly
for a black market. I used to work as a drug and alcohol counselor for years, and even medically, it doesn't make any sense to me because you're sending somebody to jail not only for the substance because they're under the influence of substance, and it's a diagnosable mental issue.
Mm-hmm.
So
oh yeah,
it doesn't. I don't understand how arresting people because they're using substance. I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
No.
But anyway, you were talking.
No, I'm distracted now. Talk about something else. My brain just trailed off.
Hey, Mike, Mike, weren't you the one that filmed the arrest of Pete Santilli at that FBI checkpoint?
Yes, I was. I was there documenting with Pete Santilli. I can go on about that a bit if you want after I drink a sip of water.
Mini Wachani. Water is life.
I was out at Standing Rock as well. I went and covered that. I spent about 2.5 weeks out there.
Yeah, I saw you guys' tent. I kept on walking by it as I was going to Winona's kitchen a couple times.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, no. That wasn't me. That was Jacob Crawford of We Cop Watch.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, great guys too.
Contemporaries of mine, yes. I love David Crawford's work, man. He's an amazing guy. But yeah, they got out there later than I was. They were out there for the real winter. You know, I was there when it was cold. They were there when it was like, you know, tearing the flesh off you cold, you know. Like, oh yeah, well that used to be my hand. Yeah.
Yeah, my beard froze, and I got like it was pneumonia, hypothermia, so I ended up having to go into town to get better. Yeah.
So I was asked about Malheur. I'd like to digress to that for a minute.
Okay.
So yeah, we've already covered the fact that I believe that LaBoy Finicum was murdered. You know, I reported that. You know, I called it. Let me toot my own horn. But like the afternoon, the day after it happened, I'm like, it was obviously murder. They murdered that guy, and we'll find out for sure years down the road. But Bob and I showed up in Malheur and stayed in the same little hotel that everybody was in. What I mean by everybody was like there was like Brandon Curtis, the president of the some 3% group, like the Pacific Patriot Network or some shit like that. A bunch of militia guys, you know, the right wing waiting for the world to end or their line in the sand to be crossed, you know, rifle carrying types. There was corporate media. It was me and Bob. There was some alt media people. There was Pete Santilli and Deb Jordan and his entourage and news crew down there. Pete Santilli is kind of like a patriot kind of right-wing commentator. He's got a really big mouth, great sense of humor, obnoxious. I mean, just has a fucked up crude mouth on him. I personally approve of that kind of humor. He made a joke about having Hillary Clinton tried and shot in the vagina once. I personally, you know, God bless him. That's fucking hilarious. That cracks me up. You know? I mean, why not that method of execution? You know, I mean, whatever. You know, I mean, personally, I like the heads on sticks party. I mean, here's how I would vote for president. If a motherfucker would just circulate a list of the heads of, you know, major corporations and other people like that, and if they would promise to do their utmost to put their head on a stick, like, I would vote for them. I mean, the heads on sticks party. I mean, I could get down with that. But, you know, since that's never going to happen, and that's in my, like, you know, twisted, demented comic book fairy fantasy land. But, yeah, that's never going to happen. But, yeah, heads on sticks party. So I was in the hotel with all these people, you know, a multitude of folks. So I was having my continental breakfast with, sitting here would be a militia type dude in body armor. Right here would be a corporate media person, and right there would be me, like, and I mean like a news anchor, and we'd all be talking, and it was just surreal as hell because, you know, the pretense of the you're in this camp and you're in that one just goes away when it's like, you know, 7:40 in the morning and you still got eye boogers and you're just trying to get your you know, your OJ down you, and we're just having conversations that, you know, like corporate media people are pissed off too. Here's one for you. A lot of these people's editors, like a lot of anchors, aren't just mindless drones reporting what they're told. No, they go out there and reporters and anchors, they go out there and try to portray what they see as the truth, but their editors will only allow them to cover certain things. A lot of the corporate media folks were telling me, oh yeah, if we went down the wrong road, they'd aim rifles at us and tell us to turn around. It was scary as hell. And I'm all, well, why is that not on the news? You know, when I'm having my breakfast with them. And they're like, oh, well, you know, they won't let us. I'm like, what do you mean they won't let us? I'm all, you know, and that's when I started to get some insight into the fact that it's the corporate people above them, you know. Like, so a lot of these, you know, corporate media people that you want to spit on at a protest when you film them, like, or when you're there and they're not, you know, portraying the truth. Hey, they just mass arrested 200 people and they're beating an old lady. You know, they bear some responsibility, but a lot of everything is, the hierarchies in our society are just crazy. Like, and the way that the masses are controlled through hierarchy, through power, through money, like all this stuff is just wow. You just can't help not admire the efficiency in which people are brainwashed. I mean, personally, I think the film, The Matrix, especially the first one, was a brilliant allegory and metaphor for society. I mean, it was Plato's cave for the 21st century.